OWS Week has had a busy 7 days with the Chicago Teachers Union strike opening March and Occupy Chicago Anti-Eviction Campaign to clean up the mortgage mess at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Across the U.S., Pasadena, California, and Atlanta, Georgia also stage actions against Fannie Mae, but all eyes remain fixed on the Big Apple as protesters converge there for OWS S17 anniversary. The police were out in force and getting rough with the people, but the people shall have their day. After all, the whole world is watching. A year has passed since Occupy Wall Street set up camp at Zuccotti Park. In that year, a U.S. presidential election has pitted one servant of the 1% against another, each portraying himself as a champion of the American people. The majority party candidates haven't spoken much about the right to public education, the right to strike, especially in the public sector, and the right to dissent. Both have ignored the active suppression of those rights on a scale unseen since the McCarthy era, but representatives of the 99% have been paying attention, making noise, and taking action. In Chicago, a group of committed teachers has taken back their union and confronted the neoliberal agenda of Mayor Rahm Emanuel and his unelected 1%er school board.
Who are you?
I'm Rhonda McLeod. I work at Gresham School. I'm a special ed teacher who's nationally board certified and highly qualified and with 15 years experience.
Tell me how to spell your name, because if they want it, I gotta know.
capital L-E-O-D.
Awesome.
Like Mary McLeod Bethune.
Why are you here?
Because we need smaller class sizes. We have a kindergarten room that has 47 5-year-olds in it. We have a 7th grade room with 47 kids. We have a 5th grade room with 38 kids. We have no air conditioning. Friday, my classroom was 92 degrees. I have air conditioners I purchased. They will not let me plug them in. I have spent $2,000 on school supplies this summer for my students in Englewood, Gresham, who don't have the money to buy their own materials. I am still waiting for books. I'm still waiting for materials this year. The computer system for Gradebook was not working, and they spent $60 million on that 2 years ago. It should work. We deserve assistants who can work. We need money. We need time. It's not about the raise. It's about the children.
A strike was called last week with the first rally and march taking the streets on September 10th. Tens of thousands of people, teachers, striking school workers, and their supporters formed a sea of red in downtown Chicago. Their action illustrated that the neoliberal model for school reform is not, in principle, different from other neoliberal reforms. The capital must open new markets, and previously public sector spaces are the targeted frontier.
once we get this bill, we're going to come out for you guys on your behalf. Not a problem.
This week also saw major protest actions against Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac by occupiers and allies across the country. Chicago's Anti-Eviction Campaign showed up at Fannie Mae headquarters armed with mops, brooms, dustpans, and rubber gloves to clean up the mortgage mess. Protesters were disciplined, quietly infiltrating the lobby and making their point before ejection by security guards and police. Spirits were not quelled, and the cleaning brigade marched to Freddie Mac headquarters for a rally where voice was given to a favored cause of OWS and its allies, protecting American families from illegal foreclosures and evictions. The Chicago action was echoed by 99ers in Atlanta, Georgia, and Pasadena, California, where Occupy groups were joined by community activists for nationwide solidarity protests against the two mortgage giants with funny names. Occupy Wall Street has spent the past year protecting families from foreclosure and eviction as part of the global struggle of everyday people against speculative finance capital and its callous disregard for human rights and interests. Banks, governments, and transnational corporations have pledged allegiance to profit through faulty mortgage practices, food derivatives, natural resource grabs, GMOs, agrofuels, free trade agreements, structural adjustments, and austerity plans, all meant to increase the privileges of the 1% at the expense of the 99% and at a tremendous cost to the planet. OWS and its allies had a busy 7 days, culminating in the positive 99er convergence on New York City for their one-year anniversary. The call-out was made on the weekend of September 17th for all members of the 99% to converge on New York City for 3 days of celebration, education, and resistance. OWS has fundamentally changed the conversation and empowered people to take to the streets in their communities. Courageous patriots have pinpointed the proper villain in the American nightmare and displayed how, when it comes to the degradation of the American dream, all roads lead to Wall Street. S17 saw the march to end suppression of OWS as protesters began gathering at Washington Square Park to raise awareness of the continued suppression of non-violent activists and the Occupy movement. New York police were a heavy presence and, true to form, targeted citizens, journalists, snatching, grabbing, and arresting previously identified organizers along with event chroniclers. NYPD immediately illustrated the purpose of the march to end suppression, and occupiers remain undaunted. They know mainstream U.S. media is in large part ignoring their efforts, but their audience is the watching world. One of the upcoming projects of OWS is Strike Debt, and OWS held a training session to unveil the Debt Resisters Operations Manual. The guide for individual and collection action in the fight against debt in all forms was well received, and the emerging debt-resistant movement is on. 99ers also held a traditional Occupy Town Square on S17. Occupy Town Square, OTS, have been held in parks and other public spaces around New York City since February 2012. OTS recreates the essential principles of Zuccotti Park, horizontal participation, and mutual aid. OTS intends to welcome newcomers and passersby, but also create spaces to reflect on the past year and articulate alternatives and solutions to the current system. The framework also balances planning and structure with spontaneity and creativity. September 16 started off with the Spectrofrac Pipeline Blast Zone March with the Occupy Army.
It's an environmental devastation. It's extreme additional pollution on the water supply with downstream health effects likely. Now's the time. Plus, it's fossil fuel based, so we're also contributing to climate change if we don't stop it now. Now's the time. We have to put up a stop. All of us.
Take your name?
Fred.
The Occupy Guitar Band is a leaderless brigade of hundreds of instrumentalists and singers assembled with guitars, ukuleles, cellos, violins, basses, noisemakers, and voices. The Guitar Army teamed up with the Occupy Pipeline environmentalists and local community members to stage a parade starting at projected blast perimeter of the Spectra Energy fracked gas pipeline currently under construction in the West Village. Connecting the dots between dirty, dangerous fossil fuels and Wall Street, the parade ended at Foley Square, where the Guitar Army kicked off the OWS 99 Revolutions concert.
I'm from Florida.
What's your name?
Gordon.
Why did you
come all the way from Florida to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Occupy Wall Street?
It's something the people got to wake up to, you know. There's too much damage to the environment. Money is becoming more important than people. So we're protesting it.
S17 also hosted Occupy Town Square's open space at Thomas Paine Park, where tables, food, teach-ins, workshops, performances, training, and discussion were held throughout the day.
My name is Logan Price. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, mostly from Seattle. I've been out here since last October, so nearly a year. Occupy, I think, has changed a lot of people's lives. I certainly never expected to still be here. I think it's changed the narrative in a lot of important ways because we never really talked about in the mainstream news about how much inequality there is in this country and how for the last, particularly the last 40 years, but much longer than that, we've been sort of being set up to slowly become a much more class-based society than we already were. I think it's really important what Occupy's done also to bring direct action back into the public sphere. And it's no longer an obscure thing that some of us talk about, maybe who reminisce about the civil rights movement or the anti-globalization movement that started in Seattle 12 years ago, 13 years ago. But it's actually become a sort of collective experience in this country, and I think social media helped with that. That actually, if you want to make change, voting isn't just quite enough anymore. And I think Occupy was a lot of people realizing that, and realizing that the government wasn't really going to have their back and didn't have their back. Otherwise, the bankers would have gone to jail.
OTS is considered an open source board for groups and individuals to present planned activities and facilitates connection between concerned citizens and scheduled actions.
All right, you want to state your name for me and tell me where you're from?
Yes, my name's Bill Steyert. That's S-T-E-Y-E-R-T. And I live in Forest Hills, Queens.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your involvement with Occupy Wall Street over the last year, and tell me a little bit about how you think Occupy's changed the narrative about the dissent in the country over the last year?
Well, I joined Occupy Wall Street the first day, which of course everyone knows now is September 17th, 2011. And I had just read about it in one of the free New York papers the day before, because I'm not even on the computer like I should be. But I came down and watched as they filled up Zuccotti Park, and I came down every morning from Queens to see that the thing was still progressing. And it, of course, became a phenomenon, and until finally the mayor pulled the plug on it November 15th. But I believe it did change the rhetoric in America. The phrase, "we are the 99%," said a lot, because the 1% kept getting richer while the rest of us kept getting poorer. And I should know. In any case, I think that Occupy has filled an important niche in our political environment by pointing out the serious problems of capitalism, of corporatism, and what we have now, instead of a democracy, is a corporatocracy, because the corporations are in bed with the politicians, and so their money provides the politicians the wherewithal to run for office. So we're stuck, at least at the higher levels of government, with a lot of people who are beholden to corporations. We have to stop this.
The Occupy Wall Street anniversary concert was held on S16 and included a variety of acts, headline bands, interactive performances from OWS and allied campaigns, and creative direct action training to prepare the 99% for Monday's Day of Resistance. 99%ers greeted the September 17 birthday gathered in Times Square at midnight for celebration and solidarity. After a few hours late and early morning dawn, the iconic People's Puppets held a party procession beginning at Ferry Terminal and winding its way through the financial district. Actions flowed into one another as ACT Upon NY joined Occupy Wall Street in the streets of Lower Manhattan to demand a financial transaction or Robin Hood tax for Wall Street.
My name is Rich Starris. upstate New York, Greenfield Center, and Occupy Wall Street to me hits home probably because I don't make the type of income that some of those other people do, and some of my friends who are working on Wall Street. I work in a community that's fairly conservative, that's low socioeconomic, and they have no idea that they're being disadvantaged by some of the policies of a conservative type of government. And maybe if I could convince them that, that some of the policies of more of a democratic way are beneficial to them and always have been, then I would. But right now I don't protest just because probably my friends are not passionate about the ideas, and I'm not solely affected by it because I have a comfortable standard of living.
Construction began on the People's Wall in the early morning. People from all walks of life assembled in the streets surrounding the New York Stock Exchange for an historic act of nonviolent civil disobedience.
I'm a nurse. I'm a nurse from the National Nurses Union. Move! Everybody in this country overworked and underpaid. There's no affordable housing and no health care. See you in New Haven. I'm a nurse. I worked at Bellevue and St. Vincent's and Yale, New Haven, and I'm fighting for justice until I'm dead.
A peaceful sitting wall was formed to deliver a clear message. The 99%ers will no longer stand for business as usual.
One thing I've been really inspired by in a lot of the propaganda that's come out, a lot of these conversations people have been having about the 1-year anniversary, is the fact that we're not really treating it as a backward-looking nostalgic thing of like just celebrating Zuccotti Park for its own sake, even though obviously we all deeply love that place and that experience. But really thinking about the anniversary as a launching pad or like a kickoff party for year 2. And like, it's not just year 2 of the movement. It's like, what if you were to think about year 2 as like a whole new calendar, like a whole new era of time and history, which is what they did in the French Revolution. They declared a new calendar.
The blockade was intended to symbolically and literally open space for the 99 revolutions to emerge and set the stage for the stormed Wall Street convergence. OWS says it has identified the problem. All roads lead to Wall Street. Their proposed solution? Reverse the flow of traffic. The 99 revolutions attempted to disrupt traffic throughout the financial district by creating a swirl of roving intersection occupations surrounding the stock exchange.
They said that if you have the banner unfolded, that you're blocking pedestrian traffic from getting past you. And yesterday they arrested Sean McCowan for holding a banner, so we knew that he wasn't bluffing. He was gonna arrest somebody. So they just grabbed the banner out of Billy's hands.
Each occupation planned to enact a world without Wall Street as envisioned by members of the 99%. 99 revolutions flowed into storm Wall Street. Protesters met at the U.S. Bankruptcy Court on Bowling Green, the site where Occupy Wall Street first arose to call for an end to the corporate occupation of the planet and to demonstrate that a just and sustainable world is possible.
Michael King, Strong Economy for All Coalition. There are a lot of groups fighting for economic justice before Occupy Wall Street. But now, after Occupy Wall Street, everybody understands that there's a 1% and there's a 99%. And you can judge government policies, you can judge the policies of Wall Street banks by whether they benefit the 1% or whether they benefit the 99%. It's a movement that has built understanding among regular people in the country. Not based on talking points written by lobbyists for billionaires, based on discussions of people occupying in a clear division between who's benefiting from this economy and who's getting screwed. I think it's right for the United Nations to step up its efforts on behalf of free speech and protesters here in the United States. There are precedents. You know, the United Nations was taking action on AIDS long before the American government took action on AIDS. And I think understanding that free speech rights are universal human rights, that everybody should have a chance to speak out, particularly when the government is not working on their behalf, It's time for all of us to understand that, and I think people around the world, activists, protesters are working together. The United Nations can help us in America.
The 99% plan to circle New York's first public park with a groundswell reminder of the 1% of their growing debts to Mother Earth and that the commons belong to us all. Other actions scheduled for September 17th include the 99% return to Wall Street, intended to show that 99ers stand united against a corrupted system. The assembly brought together union workers and leaders, economic experts, and occupiers to amplify the message of the movement.
Do you want to state your name and tell me a little bit about what the one-year anniversary of Occupy Wall Street means and what you hope to see in the upcoming year?
My name is Dennis Trainer Jr. The one-year anniversary of Occupy Wall Street is significant because last year on September 17th, a few hundred people came down to Zuccotti Park to start a conversation that now millions of people around the country and around the world are engaging in. We're about to step off and engage in a people's wall, an escalation, or a shifting in different tactics that's happening here at Occupy Wall Street. So my hope for this year is for more people to get the their couches and join us in the streets.
But the one percenters' heavy-handed tactics, including blocking whole districts of NY City to the public, metal barriers, riot and mounted police, as well as baton charges, culminated in more than 180 arrests. The corporate media put the S17 anniversary protesters' numbers at a few hundreds, but failed to explain how close to 200 people could have been arrested from among such small turnout. The corporate media has been trying to downplay the immense impact of the Occupy movement ever since its inception, and even on occasions when tens of thousands of protesters hit the streets, the 1%'s mouthpieces have reported only 2,000 or 3,000 people out demonstrating for their rights.
Everybody's got to get on the sidewalk.
So, Amanda Ladoza.
Back up.
The day wound up with 99 solutions, where the people planned discussions, saying the work has just begun and closing with clarity. All roads lead to Wall Street, but the road past Wall Street into the future is the one we must pave together.